Dan, and today I'm going to show you how to modify a Brother QL570 label printer so that it prints with regular receipt paper. Now Brother have done a few things to prevent you from doing this, clearly because they don't want you using a $50 printer to print receipts. They usually cost between $300 to $600, especially if they've got Mac drivers. This mod really costs you nothing. But it does work. It works quite well, and we actually use it here in our electronics repair store. Now I've hacked the crap out of our printer. If you could just bring the camera down and have a look at this one. I've hacked the crap out of it. You don't need to do this. I did it to experiment to quite some degree. Now you'll see that I've ripped the side off the printer. I've ripped the top off the printer, I've ripped the button panel, I've moved the button panel. Some of this you need to do, I'll take you through this later on. A lot of it you don't, like the side panel for example doesn't need to come off, the top panel here doesn't need to come off. This is just stuff that I've ended up doing throughout the course of my experiments. But anyway, I'll just show you these little features that Brother use to protect their printers from unauthorized use. So basically, first of all the labels that you buy for Brother printers come with this encoder strip on the back, printed on the back. Now this is 62mm paper. It comes with 5mm in black squares, if you like, separated by a 5mm space. Some of the finer or the thinner rolls of paper come with probably 10mm. This is about 35mm thick, but it comes with 10mm dots along the underside of the paper. So the spacing of that tells the printer what type of paper is left in the printer, as well as another little function down the bottom here. This is just to show you on a different roll. Notice down the bottom here we've got this little part here that has all these little dots, and these little dots tell the printer what type of paper to expect, and these black marks here tell the printer what type of paper is actually in there. So there's two little things that we need to bypass here. Now this bottom one is easy. You literally just snap it off, okay? Now with a 62mm roll, I'll explain why to use a 62mm roll later, but as an example, snap this one off, and I need you to glue it in its corresponding location on the inside of the printer. And you can see I've done it with a 62mm roll, which only has 2 holes. Okay, so snap that off and put it in literally glue it into its location. That's going to tell the printer that there is some paper in there. The other thing that you're going to need to do is you're going to need to hop online and print one of my encoder strips. Now my encoder strips, I've actually designed this up to print on an A4 piece of paper, and you'll see that I've got some crop marks here. You need to crop it along the crop marks, okay? Now just to quickly do this, and obviously you need to be a little bit more careful than what I am right now, but try and get it as straight as you possibly can. Crop that encoder strip. Now you're probably thinking, well, why isn't he just using the one on the back of a label? And it's because the ones on the back of the labels have grease-proof paper. It doesn't glue very easily. Alright, what I'm going to do effectively is I'm going to wrap this around a certain part of the printer, and I'm going to glue it, okay, so that the lines are on the inside, like so, okay? And I'm going to glue it so that we have a proper order of the lines, black, white, black, white, black, white. I don't want to go black, black, white or anything like that. So come back over here and I'll just show you what I've done to this printer. Now, I've ripped off the side, I've hacked out all this stuff with a Dremel. None of this you need to do, okay? The only thing that you need to do is you need to pull off the top part of the printer. You need to unscrew these 2 silver screws here and pull off, I guess if you like, half of the knife. Just pull it off, put it to a side. You also need to unscrew this encoder holder. Now the actual encoder itself is right underneath here. It actually sits inside this piece of plastic that goes across here. Now you don't need to move it. One of the other videos you need to move it to the side here. You can see that I've experimented with that. It didn't work very well. One of the other videos that some other gentleman did. This way is much more reliable. It actually works and it's reliable. So back over here. So first of all, what I've done is I've removed this. I've removed these 2 screws here, and I've just moved this encoder holder, if you like, this big long black plastic part, just moved it to the side. Then what I've done is I've grabbed my strip and I've fed it behind the knife. Very important that it goes behind the knife. Just wiggle it down, push it through. You may need a sort of screwdriver or something just to sort of push it through. But I've it often helps just to pull it out a little bit, just to apply a little bit of pressure, if you like, to the knife, just so that you can feed it down. Sometimes it helps just to rotate this sort of gear, if you like, just to help it sort of feed through. And once it sort of comes out down the bottom, you need to push it back up, and you need to pull it around behind this encoder strip. Now, you may have moved the encoder strip out of the way, that's fine, just leave it out of the way for the moment. Feed this paper back up so that it's literally going up the back of the printer, as you can see here. And once it's in place, basically glue it. All right, we'll glue it around this encoder holder, if you like. Now, once you've done that, you'll just need to move it across to the side. One of the mods that you can see that I've made is I literally just used pieces of an old spool, if you like, just ripped it into little pieces, dremeled out little bits, and then just hot glued it into place. And this is just to hold this in its current position. I don't want it sort of moving all left and right all over the printer. It's got to stay in position, basically rotating around that encoder, which is literally down here. Now what this does is it tricks the printer into thinking that, hey, yeah, I've got regular paper inserted into me. And as long as it can see those lines and it can see that the spacing is correct, it's going to think it's got 62mm paper. Now, the reason I'm using 62mm paper or a 62mm spool is because it's as large as I can go. And what that means is that I can use smaller spools of receipt paper, larger spools. I can then just whack in the old label paper if I want to, without any changes whatsoever. So yeah, first of all, we're just going to whack this one in here. Now, remembering that it actually prints, the printing side goes down in these printers. So I'm just going to whack that one in there. Now you can see that when I'm feeding this paper, I literally just feed it under the under the encoder strip that I've just glued in place, in exactly the same way that you normally would when you're printing with this one. You'll also notice that I've ripped off another little piece of a spool, and I've just sort of bent it slightly outwards and just jammed it in one of these little slots here. Okay, and again, that's for the same reason, just to hold this paper, you know, in a relatively good place, so it's not sort of moving all over the printer, because obviously this is 52mm, it's not 62mm, it's obviously going to move all over the place, and I don't want that to occur. So that's just holding everything in place. Now from there on in, the only other mod that I really needed to make, and I dare say you will definitely need to make, is to glue this electronics panel to the side of the unit. Now there's actually two things that I've done to this electronics panel. First of all, I've pulled it off from the top here, and I've just done away with the old you know, button aesthetic button assembly that was on the top there. I've glued it to the side here. Now what I've done is I've wrapped a bit of tape around a little push button that it was on the side here, and this actually tells the printer that this case is closed. Once I've done that, I've just hot glued it to the side of the printer. I've got my power button there on the side, okay. I've got my trim button, and I've got my feed button. Now as you can see, as I feed the paper, you'll see that our little encoder strip just sits there and rotates around and around and around, confusing the printer and making the printer think that it's actually got some labels in it. The paper itself feeds right underneath this, and you'll notice when I press the cut button, it doesn't cut the strip. Okay, it's very important that it goes behind the scissor mechanism, if you like, not over the top of it. Anyways, so just to prove that everything works, you can obviously see that we don't have a red light. If it wasn't working, or if the encoder wasn't lined up correctly, or if the strip wasn't printed in exactly the same scale that I've supplied, and I'll put the link in the bottom of the video, then you would notice you get a red light. Basically, if this encoder strip isn't right, if you haven't printed it right, if the lines aren't the correct spacing, the printer's going to go, well, someone's trying to confuse me, or something's wrong with the printer, and it won't let it work. So just to prove that everything works okay, this is a Mac. I'm using Mac drivers and just printing a receipt for our business. And it has failed for some reason. Hold on a second, let's just have a quick look at this printing. Oh, sorry, I've got a cancelled print in there. Let's just activate that one again. And sorry, I'll just try that one more time. And I'm hoping for the best. Come on, baby. There we go. So it actually prints this receipt in two parts. There's the second part. And there you go. One receipt printed at high resolution, which is quite unusual for a $50 printer. High resolution on standard receipt paper with a Brother QL570. Thanks for your time. Hope you enjoyed it. And today I'm going to show you how to modify a Brother QL570 label printer so that it prints with regular receipt paper. Now, Brother have done a few things to prevent you from doing this, clearly because they don't want you using a $50 printer to print receipts. They usually cost between $300 to $600, especially if they've got Mac drivers. This mod really costs you nothing, but it does work. It works quite well, and we actually use it here in our electronics repair store. Now, I've hacked the crap out of our printer. If you could just bring the camera down and have a look at this one. I've hacked the crap out of it. You don't need to do this. I did it to experiment to quite some degree. Now, you'll see that I've ripped the side off the printer. I've ripped the top off the printer, I've ripped the button panel, I've moved the button panel. Some of this you need to do, I'll take you through this later on. A lot of it you don't, like the side panel, for example, doesn't need to come off. The top panel here doesn't